Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is my review for Ford versus Ferrari. And what Ford vs. Ferrari is essentially about is basically we center on the character of Carroll Shelby, and he is someone who works exclusively for Henry Ford. He really loves to design cars and things like that, but basically Ford is kind of having this crisis where Ferrari is very much starting to, one-up them in that way, and Ferrari feels that they are more superior. So basically Ford decides that he is going to design this, he wants, Shelby to design this car, make it the best that it could possibly be. Not only just is it going to be a great car, but it is going to win the Le Mans, the new Le Mans for 1966. And basically, Shelby plans it's going to be done in a couple days. And he also assists the help from Ken Miles, his friend, that is going to help him make this car. So, Ford vs. Ferrari overall, I was very excited for this film. This, to me, seemed like it was going to be a very fascinating biopic for sure, but also seemed like it was going to be a really great actor showcase as well. You know, it's been getting a lot of praise at, like, film festivals and things like that. And everything that I've heard about this movie is very much true. This is a really great and very inspiring film that I really can't recommend enough. We're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And definitely that's going to be one of the biggest draws going into this film. The cast here is really great for sure, but especially when it comes to the combined effort of both Matt Damon and Christian Bale, who are probably one of the best duos of the entire year. Both of these guys are so great in this movie. They have excellent chemistry for sure. And let me just say right now, it is so great to see Matt Damon in something that he is actually really good in, and actually is a really good film. And his character of Carroll Shelby is really well done. This is a guy that has this passion for, designing cars and things like that, and he has a lot to live up to because, he feels this frequent pressure from this company and things like that, but he remains very positive. He remains very optimistic about trying to design the best car possible, and you really do care about him because of that, and Damon just really exudes a lot of passion, a lot of empathy, and just a lot of care for this character. And I think he gave probably one of the best performances he's given in a very long time for sure. I was very impressed by him here. But it's Christian Bale who is the real standout of this film. Once again, just proving how he is one of the best actors working today, playing such a dynamic character in the form of Ken Miles, who, yes, he can be very erratic, yes, he can be very difficult to work with, but he really cares about car racing. He really cares about what he's doing. He acts like his life depends upon it most of the time, and he just does such an excellent job in this film. There are so many scenes that I just really loved what he was doing. I think that he very well could get another Oscar nomination here. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but it's definitely possible. And again, just seeing him go from something like Vice, where he's playing just this really slimy character, to here, where he's playing someone that is so inspiring in that way, and someone that I think we all could very much look up to, really just shows just how amazing of a character actor that he really is, and how transformative that he really is. I mean, he just, once again, completely loses himself in this role, and like I said, the chemistry between these two is absolutely electric. They bounce off each other so well, they work so well together, and I was just very impressed with both of them throughout the film. As far as the rest of the cast goes, they also do a really great job here. Jon Bernthal, who, let me just say, finally, it's great to see him in a movie where he actually has a substantial role. This isn't like other films where he just has like 3 minutes of screen time. No, he actually does play a pretty big role here, and he does a really good job in this movie. I was very impressed by him here, as always. Great to see Caitriona Bale in something as well. I love her as an actress, and she plays Ken's wife here, who is almost just as passionate, if not more passionate, and honestly kind of crazy as he is, and I just really loved her here for sure. I really love the dynamic between these two, and I thought that she had some of the best scenes in the entire film. Noah Jupe is an actor that I've been keeping an eye out for a while, and I think he gives another really great child performance here. The relation between him and Ken is probably one of the best of the entire film. I think he did a really excellent job here. I really love Tracy here, Remo Girone, just an excellent cast all around. There really isn't a single dud here in terms of acting. I think everyone really did give it their all, and that's definitely one of the best things about this film. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, because I think that, again, is going to be another really big sell for people, and it should be, because James Mangold has proved before that he is an excellent director. He is very good when it comes to these kinds of stories, and he, once again, churns out some really great work here. I thought he did a really great job directing this film. It's far less tragic than his previous film, Logan, which was such a brutal and hopeless film in that way. This film is far more uplifting. It's definitely far more, again, it's far more uplifting. It's far more entertaining in that way, but it also isn't afraid to have a lot of heart to it, and that's something that Mangold definitely does know about, and I think he did a really good job directing this film overall. You can tell the passion that he has for this event and the significance that it really had for him, but also just really offering up some really great directing here, and I was just very impressed by what he did. The writing as well is really great to this film. I really did enjoy the screenplay here, and the biggest thing I think that is going to surprise some people is that, yes, the movie is called Ford versus Ferrari, but that's not really what this film's about. That's very much a side thing. The movie really is about the friendship that these two men really did have, this bond that they had, and how, even though they might not have always seen eye to eye, they always connected because of their shared passion for cars, whether it was, Shelby's passion for car building or Miles' passion for car racing. This is something that matters a lot to them. They don't just view this as a hobby. This is not something they just do as a sport. This is them. This is who they are. This means everything to them. And they also know they also very much know what could end up happening. They know the negative consequences that could happen. They know what could end up, the life altering sort of ramifications of all of this, and they're well aware of it, but they don't care because they have that love for car racing, and I think they did a really great job with that. But also just seeing how these two bring out the best in each other. You can see why Shelby needs Miles and why Miles really does need Shelby in the way, and I just thought their friendship was very endearing in that way. It was very well portrayed. It was the kind of friendship that you really do hope to have, and I think they did a really good job with that here for sure. I really did love the writing with that, but the film also is surprisingly saying a lot in terms of its message. Like I said, the Ford versus Ferrari thing, when watching the film, almost has kind of a negative connotation to it, because you're not really supposed to be rooting for Ford. That's something that the film kind of makes you think when it comes to when it comes to like the trailer and things like that. It's not really about you rooting for Ford. Ford, if anything, is kind of a antagonist in his own way. He is someone that is very corporate, and he wants things to be done in his way. He wants to do what he can to, he's someone who knows that he is looked at in the image of his father. He wants to, be as good as his father was, but he also knows he's not his father. His father did make some mistakes, and he's trying to kind of pick up the pieces where his father left off. So you see that he has tremendous pressure with that, but you also see how this really limits Shelby. There's a lot of things that he wants to do, and this company is very much hindering him from doing so, but especially when it comes to Miles, who isn't really someone that likes to follow the rules. He very much likes to do his own thing. He doesn't really care about the danger he gets into, as long as it's something he wants to do, and if he gets to, finally move forward with that goal, and if he gets to achieve it, that's really what matters to him. And I really do love the message that this film is trying to send, that don't go by what just a corporation wants you to do. And also, very much a film about capitalism and things like that. And that's not something you'd expect to see from a film like this. But I really appreciate the fact they actually did try to provide that message here, showing that, yes, we all want to root for Ford, but at the same time, this very much was limiting these two men from really getting to achieve what they wanted to. And there's one moment, especially towards the end, that, it just made me so angry at what this corporation was doing and how much it was just holding these two guys back from doing what they really wanted to accomplish in that way. And you'll know when you see it, but oh my god, it really just shows just how corporate, but also just how selfish this company really was. How they really didn't care about these two people. They really were just cogs in the system to them that were helping them jerk themselves off in that way, and that's really all it was. And I really love the way the film didn't shy away from that. It really does examine how people are bought out by corporations and things like that much better than I would have expected it to. And I just really appreciate the fact the film wanted to hone in on that. That's not a message you would expect a film like this to do, but they really do handle it excellently, and I was very impressed by that here. But also just the time they give you to invest in both Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles. These are two men that have very different outlooks on life. Like I said, Carroll Shelby is someone who always feels this immense pressure. While he really cares about the cars he's designing, he also feels like he always has to adhere to this corporation and what he's being told to do and things like that. And he really wants to appeal to them in that way. So he doesn't really get to do what he wants to. Well, like I said, Ken Miles is not a rule follower at all. He very much does his own thing. And you see how, even though yes, this is very inspiring, the film also does a good job of showing that what this does to his family. His wife, for example, is very increasingly worried, but she never just feels like the increasingly worried wife. She feels like she is very much a character who supports him, but also has her own agenda in that way, but also isn't afraid to get her hands dirty. There's a really great scene, especially where these two are having this argument, but rather than just seeing them argue, she basically ends up, basically giving him his own, basically going on her own race car in that way. And I don't want to get too much into it, but I thought that was a really interesting way of doing it. But the relationship that like he has with his son and things like that is also very well explored. You see the love that these two have for each other. You see how supportive his son is, but also how his son very much wants to emulate his father in that way. And just overall, I think they do a really good job with getting you to zero in on these two characters. And the writing overall, I was just very impressed with here. And it goes into surprisingly really emotional directions that I wasn't really expecting. One, especially towards the end, that really did tug at my heartstrings and I think was a really genuine moment for sure. And that's one of the things I can say about this film. It's definitely one of the most genuine that I've seen all year, and I think they did a really excellent job with that. And as someone who's not really into car racing and things like that, the film actually did very much invest me because they really do double down on just what could go wrong and why certain things are so important in that way. There's, certain parts that they have to get that are integral to making sure this car operates in the right way because they know what could end up happening. What they're doing is very dangerous, and that's what I like. The film doesn't try to glorify this as like, oh, race car driving is so safe and things like that. Like, no, that's not what this film is doing. It's really feels genuine in that way. It's showing the true pratfalls of what could end up happening, and I really did appreciate them doing that. I think that was very. I think again that really just elevated how much you cared about what was going on, but also just showing the craftsmanship that Carroll Shelby had and how careful he was to design this car and make it the best that it could possibly be. And I think it just makes for some of the best scenes in the entire film for sure. The cinematography here is fantastic, though, and that's definitely going to be something where I think even if you don't like this film, that's something that everyone is going to agree upon. It is absolutely stunning to look at, especially during the race scenes. I mean, you feel like you're right there. When that, when the engine is roaring and things like that, and the cars are just speeding down the highway. I mean, it is such a adrenaline rush in that way. And I'm someone that doesn't really care about this stuff. I don't really pay attention to race car. I don't follow that kind of thing, but this film makes it really exciting, and you can see why everyone is so riveted by this, and you as well feel just as riveted. And it's not just because of again, the script, it's also because of the cinematography and just how visceral it really does feel in the way. The whole film has this very, like, bright sort of feel to it, and I think overall the cinematography was just very well done here. Really also doing a good job of putting you into that time period. I really did appreciate that for sure. The score as well here, though, is fantastic. Some really great scoring throughout the entire film, but also the sound design is just so fucking good here. I mean, I saw this movie in Dolby, and there are so many scenes where, again, it really just feels like you are in the car, not just watching the race. Like, you're in the car, you're there with Ken Miles, watching him, experience, cruising down the highway at full speed and things like that. And it's just really, really well done the way they handled that stuff. I think the sound design is probably some of the best of the entire year. It absolutely needs to be nominated at the Oscars because it's some of the best of the entire year. It's some of the most immersive for sure, and definitely it's worth seeing in a theater just for that alone, just so you can experience just how great the sound design is. It all just feels so crisp. It all just feels like you're there, and they do an excellent job with that here for sure. And then the editing in this film. Is the thing that is again going to deter some people because this film is long, and I will say there are definitely some scenes that do drag a bit, but nothing feels like it didn't need to be here. There isn't really a scene that I can think of that, oh, you could have cut that out. Oh, you could have had a little less of that. I will say I do think the film could have had a little less board meetings because that does go on for a little bit, but even that is important. You're establishing how Ford is struggling and how they want to one-up Ferrari in that way. So really every scene feels like it does have a significance in the film. There's nothing really that feels like it could be chopped out in that way. But I also think it very much benefits the story because, again, it gives you time to care about what's going on. It doesn't try to rush this at all. It really does take its time in going about this story, and that just makes you care that much more for these characters, and I think they did a really great job with that here. Again, in terms of flaws, I don't really have a lot here. There's a lot of things that I really do adore about this film. I will say, as much as I enjoyed Ken and Carol's relationship, I thought definitely, like I said, it was a very genuine bond. I would have liked to see a little bit more of them in the beginning of their relationship because we get a hint that things were rocky at one point and that they weren't as close as they were now. And I think the film, considering the way things leave off, which, like I said, is truly an emotional ending that I wasn't expecting, and not just because of the fact that it was, not just because I didn't know what happened, but just because of how well executed it was in that way. I think it would have made at that moment that much more effective if we would have had, like, say, a flashback sequence of seeing how these two met, seeing how they didn't get along at first, and then eventually they did. I think it would have just been a really effective moment, and I think there was something that the film could have delved into a bit more. There are also one or two characters here that just feel a little one note. There's a villain especially that I think could have had a little bit more depth to him. I get it that he's supposed to be part of this big corporation and things like that, but he did feel a little shoehorned in there, and I think Ford as a whole should have been the villain, which they are, but I don't know why we needed just this one guy to do it. I think that, in general, they could have had a little bit of a better villain, and like I said, there are some scenes that do drag on every so often, but overall, I can't really complain all that much. Ford versus Ferrari is the definition of just a really entertaining and very inspiring film that I think is going to do a lot for many people. It has two really great performances from both Damon and Bale, who their performances alone are enough a reason to watch it. But some of the best sound design of the year, and just a film that I think overall is the definition of just a really feel-good crowd pleaser that I really think everyone's going to get a real kick out of. And I'm definitely going to give Ford versus Ferrari overall in A-. But over, guys, in my review of Ford versus Ferrari. Let me know what you guys saw this movie overall, left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.